adding sort of chapters in the USDT. Let's take a look at NEO. Now, of course, this what you're talking about is a fundamental change, and that's not necessarily going to show up on the charts, yada yada, as people say. But also, perhaps these things get their prices baked into them. Has it has already been accounted for? Is always a question to be asked as well when you've got some big event coming up. Like a mainnet launch. Now, traditionally, they do tend to do well for the prices of assets, or crypto assets, when they have their mainnet launch, do they not? I wonder, is this starting volume, or got to be starting something? So that's one thing to look at. So just draw in a wee line on this one. Say, look towards the volume over there. Look to the highs that we've just put in over there. Let's bring up some doodads. We've got this kind of strength of trend towards the top side, which is obviously good to see. We have the RSI coming up and trying to get into the overbought territory, and having been rejected, not rejected, but having not really, it's trying up towards that direction. That's good to see. Now, could this obviously turn out to be bearish divergence? Well, yes, it could be at this, with these highs here, if they don't successfully go higher again and again and again. Do we have a local top as yet? Not really, not with this body being where it is. We have had the prices come down so far as here to give you a good test of things, but this isn't really it quite yet. Although, things look a little bit shaky in that sense. We've taken out our previous high on the channel, which took out its previous high before that. Going up the way, you've got a clear sort of picture that the trend is currently towards the top side. And it seems to be in the broader sense of things as well. So in the weekly time frame, we've got this upward trend high with a higher high thereafter, I suppose. Is that going to be accurate? Well, this is our low here. Oh, got $3 coming, or $5 coming in from Michael John Scott. Cheers very much for that. Really appreciated, John, mate. Good one. Thanks so much. Yeah, so then we're going up towards this next high, coming back down. Didn't break below the Donchian channel either, and this is the same sort of, again, this is just for sort of demonstration purposes, sort of to kind of make points about how well we're structurally, just how the I'm using one thing there to talk about the essentially just talking about how that we're coming in with higher highs and we're not breaking down past significant areas out with the realms of potential expectation, and you can see that here represented by the Bollinger Bands as well, in the sense that we've just gone within the cheers, that's just come up there now. Yeah, so it's just coming within the general realm of expectation there. So we're still trending towards the top side in terms of should I sell now. It's kind of it's a couple of different questions that you maybe are trying to answer there in a oneer. If you let me just leave it on the weekly time frame, since we're talking about a broad concept really anyway, given that you've held on to it since, well, $3 down here, even lower than that. So you got it. So we have 2017. Obviously, this is relatively recently. This here on the March lows. So obviously you're a man with a thick enough skin when it comes to that holding in the face of downward price action. So if you were looking to sort of start challenging that perspective, one way of doing it would maybe be considering from roughly in it around about where not your entry point, of course, but where would have been the second best one that you could have possibly got, I suppose, over the last few years, is down there at that low. And this is the most recent highs we've put in has come in today. And as things stand, from a Fibonacci perspective, we're still doing all right. We don't have a real valid Fibonacci towards the downside. This doesn't come in as a real confirmed local high in terms of the tops here on that. So while there could be the sort of divergence here on this weekly time frame, which is obviously visible as well in the daily time frame, that would require you to pull back a significant area, perhaps taking out the 382 with a closure here, to really start to say that this was actually divergent there on that bigger time frame, and then correspondingly down the way, then of course if we were to not do that, you'd be looking at kind of just continuing towards the top side, and that ties in fair enough with what we're seeing in terms of various other ideas, such as the fact that we're taking out previous highs along the way, and we've got this fairly visible upward trend on the go. Obviously there's retracements during it, but we're doing okay. So as visible here with the Donchian channels, and of of course, like I demonstrated already with the Bollinger Bands, and equally. And by the way, the Bollinger Band 20 period moving average coming in somewhere between the 236 and the 382 there on the daily time frame. And undoubtedly, then if we bring up other things such as Ichimoku over here, you'll see similar concepts to you. Maybe if you were to look to try and where you might put in a stop, perhaps, or whatever on a long might come in if you're using this lagging line over here, for instance, and the sort of the last low on it comes in around about this area of the 236, and where that moving average would be, for instance, and just then as well looking towards where the cloud really is in terms of so-called future support and resistance. Again, it lines up perfectly with where the 236 is at the moment, and overall, we're trading above the cloud. We've got a positive cross over here. With the divergence, moving apart with the strength of the trend coming into play here, looking okay, and the potential to really stay in things in the broader term perspective, like back up here on the weekly time frame, is really stretched out so long as you don't go down past these levels. So so in answering your question, hopefully for your perspective, or for a lot of other people, I guess, who are hodling this one, are you thinking along the lines of hodling it come what may, or are you thinking along the lines of managing your risk along the way, and perhaps trading it almost, as opposed to just simply treating it as a sort of sterile investment? And if you want to have that interaction, then you could be looking around these areas. But of course, these things operate in terms of, from that perspective, in terms of giving you buy areas on the chart. As we look at these, from this sort of point of view, we could be looking at these as buy areas potentially as well. And that means that if you wanted to treat this as a sell area, then that's your area of risk that you're taking on. And of course, that's the distinction between a lot of people when you say why would you trade and why would you not why would you trade or why would you hodl. Sometimes it comes down to the appetite that you might have to take a move between sort of the 23 and 19 areas, and you're looking at $3.50 to $4 there, more than 10% move. And it's it's a real obvious healthy way of like making profits in your account. To grow it, then again, you're obviously putting the overall sort of underlining your opportunity cost, the value that you might have then in the future is obviously pinned against that. So that's the opportunity cost there of if you believe that you're going to see a bounce here, and at any stage along the way, whether you're just simply sort of hodling it in a cold storage or you're actually actively trading it, these are the decisions that you kind of end up making, and it puts you back on there having to put your trading cap on. So hopefully then, no matter how deep you wanted to go, that kind of answers those questions for you. Let me know if it did or it didn't. I hope it at least provided some sort of insight or perspective. If you are looking down in terms of the low term time frames, and obviously things are struggling at the minute, as they have been with a number of cryptocurrencies today in terms of their short term time frame. This is obviously a very discouragingly ugly chart to look at, in a sense that with the way that the Ichimoku cloud and the colors and everything are making it look maybe difficult to see. But what you're seeing here overall essentially is that there is the potential for us to be just turning it around now. Okay, so like that's what our story will be when we go to take a look at the other cryptos that we're going to be looking at as well. We'll be asking this question of, have we turned this around just here as we poked through the top end of the Ichimoku cloud there. Now, I just happen to be using this phrasing as I'm talking about this, but if I was talking, because I've got the Ichimoku cloud up, as I demonstrate on the channel quite a lot of the time, there's like 100 different routes to the same end story as well. If you sort of you're happy to use whatever tools you have at your disposal. So I'm just kind of making that point based on what's on the screen there for anybody interested. Right, Eo, so quick summary, I suppose, of NEO before I move on to take a look at the other ones here. Starting on the 24-hour time frame, quick summary of NEO would suggest to you that we're doing quite well. The price action is moving towards the top side, and so long as we actually don't take out key areas below us, then we won't be able to confirm this as being a local high that we've just put in, and therefore this isn't divergence as yet, and overall we have an upward move towards the top side. There are some risks, and if we see a cross here in the stochastics on the daily time frame, perhaps the what we we've seen happen recently on the lower term time frames happens here on the bigger ones as we come in and put in a low here, as you can see. Now this low that's come in is actually got some hidden bullish divergence on it here with regards to the stochastics on this 4-hour time frame. In fact, as well, it has it on the RSI. So there's a number of good factors here as we look towards where, you know, the support of the Ichimoku cloud and the 236 Fibonacci retracement point are lining up with this one. Is there the potential for us to have a bounce? Yes, there is. If you're looking to hold this in terms of the longer term story, then I suppose you could be thinking beyond, you know, where your risk management zones towards the downside. But if you are just wanting to score them off your list real quick, then you're looking down towards $23, thereafter $19.42 and $16.50, and then you really are getting into severe sort of why am I hodling this questions territory. But if you're actually looking towards the top side, then there's a nice quick way to kind of do that with a couple of smaller term targets, just based off the speculative value that you could have if we were to see anywhere in this area acting as a local low for us and us finding support. And I'll just do that real quick here as we wrap up the Neo section. And by the way, if you wouldn't mind hitting like on the video and subscribing to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. But, you know, speculatively, if we were to stay, you know, go down as far as the 23 point, then your profit taking targets based off a bounce off the back of that could be taking you as high as $32 thereafter. Now, if we were to see a bounce from just around where, you know, where we had our low there previously, then your high, again, $32 more or less is where you could potentially be looking to. So anywhere in this zone, you're talking 32 up towards 33, you know, sort of area for that one. Now, there are various profit taking targets in between, but that could be your next one of significance to look to if you're looking for profit on this one. We have overall increase in volume, and of course we do actually have this slight positive perhaps potential rejection if we see continuation on the DMI to give us the negation of any potential divergences that we've seen so far. We really just need to push past those zones. There is the divergences, bearish divergences to be aware of, and the small bullish divergences we've seen there might not actually counteract that. But overall, there's your risk management and your profit taking zones for this one in the medium term. Cool, nice one. Thanks for tuning in for that. Now let me just see, I'll check in with the chat here, see how you are all getting along, and then take a look at the other coins that we're going to be taking a look at. By the way, nice to have you here, WallQ. What about the BTC ETH pair? What does it tell you? It tells you about the relative value between Bitcoin and Ethereum. Lols. I'll take a look at that. I'll take a look at that. Instead of just handing you a literal answer there. Hello, by the way. Hello to you too, by the way, my paleo WallQ. And we see a nice little chat going on there between the fellow outcropticians in the chat stream. So hello to Julian Bonilla, by the way, or is that Bonilla? I wonder, is that Julian Bonilla? Let me know where you're from, my friend. I know your goal is to make us formidable traders, but do you know of any legitimate firms or groups that handle one's crypto trading? I too have made poor trading. Well, no, I don't know of any legitimate ones that handle one's trading, but there's too much risk involved in that. Now, the sort of, I would really caution against anybody ever looking into trying to find one of those things. At some point in the future, I suppose I'll be having a group level based on Patreon subscribers for talking about what we ourselves are doing with our trading, as opposed to signals and the like. It would just be more of a community type thing, which has got a sort of doorman on it, if you like. Black tie, but the most I mean, you know already my goal is to turn you into formidable traders. The if you're experiencing losses in the market, then it's normally there's a few easy and quick routes to discovering what that is. You know, is it your position sizing? Is it the frequency and volume, if you like, of your trading? And you know, various other kind of niche, not niche, but areas that people find themselves falling into, which latterly become for a lot of people a way of then describing what type of trader they are. Because you often hear people say, oh, I'm this type of trader, I'm that type of trader. Well, kind of a lot of that is to say that because they've experienced a lot too much pain when they've traded in a different way, given how their own particular attitudes and stuff like that. So, you know, it's maybe it's a key to you is to break things down a little bit. We've all made losses. It could easily be that you're simply ignoring risk management, perhaps you're gambling from time to time in your trading activities. I think that if you're asking these questions, I mean, you've taken the first step in the right direction. Okay, you've taken the first step in the right direction by asking that question. Perhaps. But the next step is like 2 steps back again, and to look into yourself and to ask yourself what it is that you're doing wrongly. And the best solution to it, no matter what particular problem that you're having with your trading, or your attitude to trading, or your attitude to life, which has an osmosis secondary effect, negative effect on your trading, etc., 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 whatever it could be. The way to identify the problem and actually to solve it kind of is to make a journal, a trading journal. It's quite simple, really. Whatever format works for you is fine. Doesn't need to be meticulous notes with all of the relevant details, but if you can put down a note about what it was that you were thinking at the time, and then add as much detail into that as you want to. It could be that you even go as far as to talking about what you got up to that day. Were you really tired, or were you really feeling in the zone? Was that because you'd had your breakfast, etc.? It could be these things that experience it, and then you will discover so much about your own trades and what what went against you at the time. Would it have been, for instance, that you had put your stop in a different location? You wouldn't have got stopped out. You would have got the move right in the end anyway. And perhaps you're just using too much leverage and trading in a way which is somewhat reckless for you, because really ultimately maybe you're like a swing trader trading on the wrong time frame sort of idea. And you could discover that through looking at yourself in that way, that introspective way. Okay, so that would be my number one tip, and that would be the best tip that you could get in your situation. If you actually go ahead and then outsource that responsibility onto a trading group, then you're going to stifle yourself in ways that the benefits you get from that trading group will not account for, realistically. Okay, realistically in the long term. Okay, cool. So that was maybe a bit too deep for everybody's liking, but that's the truth of it. If you agree, then hit the like button. Hell yes, let's move on with the technical analysis. Thanks so much to everybody for joining us, and for sharing these videos with your friends. Thank you so much for that as well, because I know that there's great activity out there amongst people who share these videos with their friends, and not all their friends choose to speak necessarily into the chat box, and they might not get a shout out. So there are several people out there who maybe deserve a spiritual shout out, even if you're not here talking with us right now. In terms of the Ethereum pricing, I suppose we could take a look at this one now. What we've seen here is that in the box